Good morning, good morning, good morning, my beautiful people. It is almost 9:30 in the AM, very early. There's still banging going on next door, so if you can hear that, I apologise. They've started at 9, so it's always fun. Good job I was up at 5. So, we're at chapter 7. And quite honestly, I've read chapter 8 as well. And with the revelation at the end of chapter 8, I could quite easily sort of bypass chapter 7 and just tell you how excited I am for the last words of chapter 8. I cannot tell you the goosebumps that crossed over my body when I read those words. I actually welled up a little bit because that was like a dun 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 moment. It was so good. So, ignoring the banging, we're in chapter 7 talking back to Heboric and Felisin, aka Shaik, and the new Felisin, who is the girl that Shaik has adopted and called by her own name, because she's there to be like the heir. She's the heir to Shaik's throne, kind of. So now Heboric in this chapter is known as Ghost Hands because of when he touched the jade god, and it gave his hands back to help Felisin get to where she needs to get. So he's now known as Ghost Hands. We're talking about the whirlwind surrounding Raraku, and it's only passable if Shaik deems it so. So she has to be the one to say, yes, you can pass through the whirlwind. She has to be the one to allow you through. So the child Felisin believes that there is a power struggle going on from Carbol Odom towards Shaik. It seems like Carbol Odom is probably going to try and challenge Shaik for power with the revolution. But Heboric feels like nobody has the ability to contend with Shaik, so that's kind of a pointless task. He's never going to beat Shaik, so what's the point in that? The Whirlwind Goddess also is whispering to Shaik secrets about the Warren of Shadows, saying that it contains truths relevant to the whirlwind. Now this ties in with what we find later in the chapter of a broken warren scattered across realms. The goddess has power, but it was not her own at first. So it may be that she was a deity, or she was a spirit of summer wind, or protector of the whirlpool of spring, something along those lines that she was before she became the whirlwind goddess. But then she found a fragment of the scattered warren, and this gave her the power, and then she ruthlessly dominated the holy desert. And little Felisin speaks of this and of the 7 holy cities and the 7 holy books and the prophecy of the Dryjana, the apocalyptic. But Heboric feels like these are just cults feeding on one another and myths to basically fuel the faith and rally people up. And he also mentions that the first empire was of the Talanimas, which survives in memory alone, and that it falters and fades in just chance and circumstance. So I kind of take that to mean that there could be some sort of whispers, and stories added on to what the actual facts were. It's been added on over the years and made to be more potentially than what it is. It seems also Heboric's loyalty may still lie with the Malazans. He makes a comment saying that he hopes that Tavore wins this fight. I take that to mean that he means he hopes that she beats Shaik, because his loyalties still lie within the Malazans. So that's, to me, unless I forgot from somewhere, which I am known for, I don't necessarily pick up on everything, because there's a lot going on, but I take that to mean that he isn't as loyal to Shaik at this moment in time as we may be led to believe from Deadhouse Gates, but Leoman is also been discarded as Shattuck's bodyguard, and replaced with Mathok. So he's now sort of Shattuck's second. Mathok's her second, but Toblakai, I think that's how we say it, Toblakai, is still her personal guard. Toblakai is Carter, and he is still the personal guard to Shattuck, as he was before with Leoman. When they were with Shattuck the Elder, he's now still guard to Shattuck, as in Felisin. You following me so far? Oh yeah, carry on. Anyway, so Leoman brings it to Heboric's attention that he thinks that Bidethul is looking at Felisin to do things to her that he shouldn't. In the context of he did it to Shattuck Elder when she was younger, so he's going to do this to shape child Felisin as he did her mother. But this could potentially turn out to just be lies from Leoman, because he wants to be recognised again by Shattuck and put back in the position he was in. He also says that Febril, the other priest, schemes betrayal and needs allies. So he thinks that maybe there's Bidethul waiting to be asked by Febril, will he join him in his alliance against Shattuck? But Bidethul is probably going to await this invitation and then squeal, however you want to word it, to Shattuck, because he is actually quite loyal to Shattuck. Seems he's more loyal to the Warren of Shadows than he is Shattuck. He seems to have more of a thing for the Warren of Shadows than he does actually Shattuck. And Priest Lotharic is quite faithful as well to Shattuck. He seems to be the only one who has unquestionable loyalty to Shattuck. So Heboric has this thought process after he leaves his conversation with Bidethul, that maybe Shattuck, in a kind of a twisted way, because she now looks after all the children, she's become mother of all the children, he believes that maybe Shattuck is allowing Bidethul his perverse desires to some of these children, just so he will stay on side with her. Very twisted, very wrong, but he believes that that may well be the case, so that she at least has a secured ally within these priests. I find that twisted, but hey, this is what's happening. Silgar is outside Bidethul's tent, still with his hands and feet missing. Nobody's repaired that, he's still like that. But as Heboric leaves the tent, Silgar has drawn this picture of a person surrounded by chains with no hands, and Heboric takes that potentially to mean himself, because he has no hands, he takes that could mean him, and he sort of erases it because he doesn't like that being there. Tablakai is also at this time, Carter, haunted by dreams of the chains, of being in chains. And we know this because he's been captured so many times. Like as I was saying, it's starting to get a bit of a joke how many times he's been in chains now. And I made a bit of a joke about, is that why the title is what it is? Is that the meaning of it is Carter's incessant captured and being put in chains? But it seems that could actually be kind of the case. And he's also kind of subduing from who he was. He seems to be contemplating now the fact that he kind of, did what he did to the women of retired, putting his seed in them so that he could make more of his own people, and that now, because of where he is and the situation he's in, he's not actually going to get to enjoy that or reap what he's sown from that. And obviously he can't appease the gods because he's got no trophies for them now. They're just memories. He has no trophies to give. His life has took a different turn. He believes in some way it's took the turn that it was meant to take, but it's definitely took a turn, and now he has no trophies to give to the 7 gods, especially Urugu, the one god that he sort of worships. He's got no trophies for. But I'm also getting the impression that Tablakai potentially sees his 7 gods as his people's enemy now, for the position that they've put them in. I could be wrong there, I'm not sure, but that's just a little thing that maybe, from what's been said, I think might be the case. But again, I could be wrong. It also seems like the whirlwind god is seeping out poison to the leaders of the rebellion, because they should all be in alignment with Shattuck, and it seems they're not. It seems that they want to fight for ownership of this rebellion. So, and Karsa approaches Shattuck. She's just reading a book on this kind of altar, and he approaches her, and she's talking about, you know, what is going to happen after this. It seems like it's all just destruction. Is there going to be anything after? And Karsa takes her into the woods, where he has been carving into the trees these sort of statues, replicas of his friends, Bayroth and Delum, and she's kind of in awe at his skill. You know, she says it's a little bit rough, but with time it will get better. And it's beautiful because she's been writing poetry that her daughter is telling Haboric about, and expressing her feelings that way. And it seems like Karsa Teblakai has been expressing himself in his own way, which is by carving. So he says that he still has 7 to carve. Now I presume that means his gods, the gods in the rock. He's going to carve them into these trees. So if he does that, does he then open up for the 7 gods to enter the whirlwind at Raraku? Does he then give them opportunities to be there and maybe do something in there? Does that maybe cause some sort of upset now if he does that, and these 7 gods have access to inside the whirlwind? I don't know. That's just a question that I have there. And then there's a gathering of sort of the heads of the rebellion. Couldn't think of the word then. There's a gathering of the heads of the rebellion, and Haboric is brought into the meeting by Felisin, young Felisin, and we're talking of the news that Lork has received from spies within the armies of liberation, the spies in the camp reporting back, and they are reporting back on all the losses, everything that's happened. Corbolo Dom is taking great pleasure in the news of Whiskey Jack being dead. Don't get me started on that, you piece of shit. You know, Whiskey Jack's dead. Don't be reveling in that, because that's not good news whatsoever. But he's reveling in that, thinking, you know, well, without him and without them and without those, you're nothing. We're going to beat you. It's as simple as that. But Quick Ben is still alive, and Camist, that perturbs him. He's scared by that, because if Quick Ben is alive and he's asking about Callum, the assassin, and if Callum is alive, these two get together, they're a force to be reckoned with. So he's got his doubts about that. Corbolo Dom is of the opinion that they're going to be more likely to be hunting down who killed Whiskey Jack. Not necessarily. Somebody else could potentially be on the trail of Calor. It doesn't necessarily mean Quick Ben and Callum are going to be on. Callum's already got his assignment from Cotillion to find out who it is who's sort of questioning Cotillion and Shadow Throne being in the place that they are. So not necessarily, you know, who knows? We'll find out, I suppose. We'll find out. So then we get to chapter 8. So that's the end, basically, of chapter 7. Then we get to chapter 8. And Cuttle's back. And he's making a display of what he's capable of doing. You know, it's quite surprising. He just set off a bomb and surprises people. But he gets the soldiers in line and listening. So there is that. But he is having a conversation with Gamut, and he's saying, you know, he was there and he wants revenge on Malik Rel and Pulyak Allah, the ones responsible for the betrayal. He still has an argument to have with them. Then he's asked, does he know Strings, who he knows is Fiddler, and he says he's never met him, which I love. I love how everybody's like, nope, don't know him, never met him. Then next thing we know, during this lineup, this child walks onto the parade grounds holding a thigh bone. Now, unless I've missed this somewhere, this is apparently a very bad omen towards the military. This is a very bad omen and means that no good is going to come of it. So this ensues panic between all the soldiers. They think that they're going to war now just to die, and the suspicions thrown towards Blistig, Fist Blistig, that him and one of the other soldiers have, who the child is been adopted by, I can't remember his name right now and I didn't write it down, I think it's Kenneb, that they've planned this for this child to walk and do this. Blistig is obviously saying, I haven't, and kind of in some way proves that, so Gamut no longer has doubts about him. Then we go into Lestara's past and how she was a shadow dancer, and she met a man called Delat, and Delat was part of the Bridge Burners, and he actually, once he met her and saw how she danced differently to this particular dance, wanted to take her with him. But he had a job to do, which was to assassinate the priests, and he did all but one, and this one is now with Shaik, which is Bethidul. He was left alive, and he's now with Shaik. Whilst we're learning about this history of Lestara, and how she felt about Delat, and how she too would have gone with him and potentially not been a Red Blade and not felt as shunned by her family, that she had to go and do this at, I think it was 5. Cotillion shows up in her room as she's getting ready to go with Pearl. Cotillion shows up and he wants her help. And he actually wants her help to save the Empire. Now, why does Cotillion want to save the Empire? He's clearly specified that his feelings and thought process aren't the same as Callanved's. He doesn't want just purely revenge towards Lysine. He sees more. There's more to this going on. He's seeing the bigger picture, and he's wanting to help the Empire. So he is asking for Lestara's help. Cotillion also doesn't... It gives you the impression that Cotillion doesn't know about the Talons and about boarding. I'm not overly sure about that. We're talking about Cotillion. How would he not know that that's the situation of boarding with Felicity? I don't see how he wouldn't know that, but he's cracking on to Lestara that he doesn't know. So we'll go with that. He doesn't know, apparently. Pearl and Lestara has set the task of finding Felicity by the Adjunct of War, her sister. And they go to ask the guys that were last with them, which is Stormy and Pale and Truth. They go to have a conversation with them, and they do find out more information that they were with them, and they're of the belief that they're all dead now. That's their belief system, is that they're all dead. But that's not necessarily the case, as we know, but they believe they're dead. So it seems that Pearl and Lestara are going to have to investigate more. They go onto the Sylvana, which is the necromancy boat with the Headless Oarsman, and they are picking up traces of magic on this boat, or Pearl is anyway. So they're going to follow on from this to try and find out more. I do love this though, this particular part. So because of this bad omen of the child, and this is towards the end of chapter 8, because of this bad omen with the child walking onto the parade grounds with the thigh bone, Strings has gathered some of the guys who he knows, Stormy, so on, and began digging up the graves nearby and taking the finger bones. And when the Adjunct of War comes to do an inspection, they are all stood there with finger bones around the neck. She questions this with Kenneb, who is the one who has the child, adopted the child. I think that's his name, Keneb. And he obviously explains that it's to sort of counter against the bad omen and help them get through this fight that they've got. And I love how she turns to Lieutenant Ranel and says, maybe they could be wearing them on the hip belts or near the swords. And not only that, you clearly aren't dressed in the proper attire because you don't have it. And I love that, how that has given the soldiers this kind of togetherness with her, that, oh, she gets it and she's with us. I liked that. I did put love this because, you know, this was Strings, aka Fiddler's idea, and he told this story of Knock and some snakes, and rather than run from the fear, face it. I like how Tavore has gone, yeah, make sure that all of the 14th are wearing these, because that then, you know, may help us. I liked that. And then, next thing you know, there's a guy on horseback, comes charging over to Tavore, halts straight at her, crying out that it's all going off at the harbour. She needs to get over there. Why is this? Oh my days. And I'm going cold again with it because I put, holy shit, Coltane's crows have shown up. They've arrived on ships. 300 Clan of the Crow. Let that sink in, people. Let that sink in. Awesome. That's all I've got to say. So I will see you for chapter 9. Hello everyone, I'm back and we've finished chapter 9. So in chapter 9 we start off with Callum, the assassin, and Callum is in Gdanispan, that's how I'm going to say it, and he is with a merchant and he's looking at some weaponry, and they get into a conversation, Callum and the merchant, about the deck of dragons, and the merchant informs Callum that there has been a new house added and there's also now a master of the deck, which Callum clearly didn't know because of where he's been all this time. So that's interesting to Callum. He's learnt something new there. Then he sees these 2 knives in a cabinet and asks the merchant about them. And what they turn out to be, they're not identical knives, but they are 2 what looks like Wiccan swords. One having a coiled snake engraved onto it. I at first thought this was probably Coltane's sword, but it turns out that it isn't. It turns out that it may well be Carcer's sword. So Callum buys these swords and takes them with him. He wants then to speak to one particular man in Tavore's armour who knows about Raraku better than anyone else. So he goes to where the enemy are, let's say, and tries to blend in. And he tells the guy who's called Iriv that his name is Ulfas. Doesn't give his name Callum, he says his name is Ulfas. And then this mage comes over called Sin. She too starts questioning Callum. You know, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. And she sees that he's got this sword. And she then starts saying, well, where have you got that from? And he says he actually killed someone in the chain of dogs. And that's how he managed to get his hands on it. Trying to add kind of value to his story, really. Seems to kind of work. But Sin then, still being dubious of him, says, oh, right, well, if he's got that, then we can put him at the front in the battle. And he can fight the mages. And all's well. So Iris agrees to that. Callum doesn't pretend like he's got any problems with that. And that's how that particular part ends. Then later that evening, Sin is spotted by Callum performing magic on the towers, like she's trying to destroy them somehow. She's shocked to see that Callum finds her. But they then have a conversation, and what Callum finds out is that Sin is actually an infiltrator like he is. She is actually the apprentice of Fael, who is now the mage who is with Corbolo Dom. And she was the apprentice under Fael, but Fael sliced the throats of her parents, so she now wants to get revenge against Fael. So together now, Sin and Callum decide that they're gonna, they're gonna work together. It's then that Callum finds out from Sin that she's actually poisoned the water, intending to poison everyone. So Callum is a little bit perturbed by this. He's obviously going to see that these guys are going to suffer quite badly by what she's done, because she's put far too much of this particular potion in the water, so they are going to die quite horrible death. But then 3 of the Malazan soldiers, who are sort of hiding out in, I'm not sure if it's a tower, but they're hiding out kind of above where this place is, they come down on a rope to get Callum and Sin out, and they have a conversation about what Sin's done. So they say, okay, well, we'll help. So they take Sin and then give Callum the chance to, because they want Iriz. Iriz was a Malazan. He's now defected, and they want revenge with Iriz. So Callum says, right, well, you take Sin and I'll get Iriz and I'll bring him to you. So he goes off, and what he does is he has a whistle that Cotillion has given him. He takes one of these shadow diamonds out of a pouch, which is what he bought the swords with, and uses the whistle. Now, Cotillion gave him the instructions that you blow it hard if you want them all, and you blow it softly if you just want one, as in like what I imagine is a demon. So he does a soft blow, and the demon that shows up is as Azalan. It does describe it, and it's quite a weird looking thing with lots of different limbs and stuff. So this is what appears, and Callum's then thinking of how can he, because this thing can't talk, so how can he give this thing an order and know that it's understood? And he's thinking in his head of how he could say it, and Azalan hears what he says, and off he goes to go and get Iriz. When he comes back with Iriz, Callum's realised that he's literally killed everyone. Literally killed them all. But took Iriz. And Iriz is like unconscious under one of his arms. So they're climbing up. Callum's climbing up the rope. The Azalan is climbing up what seems like shadows. He gets to the top, helps Callum over. And then the guys who came before come to join them. They're obviously shocked at the sight of this demon, but Callum's like, no, it's okay. So what we find out is these are actually the guys who caught Carter the first time in Sinyard. So we've got Epron, who is the mage who put the net on Carter, Bell, and Shard. It seems that Shard is Sin's half-brother. So then we go to Apsalar and Cutter. And they've now set sail. They've buried Apsalar's father, and now they've set sail. And once they reach this land, they need to moor. So they realise that this particular land isn't very good for mooring on. They're going to have difficulty being able to do it without having to tie the boat up and potentially have it wrecked by the waves. So as Cutter is trying to get out, the boat capsizes. Cutter and Apsalar go separate ways. Cutter can't find Apsalar once he manages to get to the surface. But what does happen is somebody grabs him and pulls him out. And this turns out to be an old tea standee called Darst. And they have a conversation. He's asking, have you seen Apsalar? Darst is saying, well, if she fell out of the boat, she's probably dead. She's probably drowned. Nobody survives here, and if they do, it's only ever one. So obviously Cutter's a bit perturbed by that, but he doesn't necessarily believe it because it's Apsalar. And even though she's not ascended, she's still got bits and pieces of the people who inhabited her in her, like skills-wise. So he doesn't necessarily believe that that will be the case. So he continues to have the conversation with Darst, and they get onto the subject of Anamanda Rake. And Darst is asking, does Anamanda Rake still hold the draconian blood? And Cutter says, well, I don't know. How would I know that? So Darst says, well, he'd still be young. If you've seen him, he'd still appear young. If you didn't, he'd be older than me. And it turns out that Cutter has seen him, and he says, no, he's still young. So then Darst knows that he's still got draconian blood in him. And still, Cutter is asking about Apsalar, and Darst is saying, look, she's probably drowned. That's kind of the situation. And Darst seems like protecting the throne, because the throne's empty at the moment. It seems like he's protecting it. So then we get on to Onkar and Trull. I think I'm saying his name right. Onrak, sorry. Onrak and Trull. And they're still at this this sculpt of dogs. And the 7 dogs, who are the 7 gods, are serving an unknown master who is bent on destruction. As I say, they don't know who it is, but they know that this master is bent on destruction. And what it says in the book is, power is chained and so becomes manageable. I wrote that down because I thought that was quite interesting. With the book being called House of Chains, I thought that, had point to it. Because if power is chained, the House of Chains, and so it becomes more manageable. So that means, therefore, that people with power are being controlled so that they can be managed. That's the interpretation I'm taking from it. And they also say that you can create a shape, or like a circle of stones, which forces order to power. And they're still talking about these dog shapes in essence, and how potentially the people created these shapes to harness the power of the gods for them. And I suppose that happens in all walks of life, really, with like forming the shape of Jesus or a Buddha, or it's that kind of thing, that we form these actual physical deities to worship for ourselves. Without actual blind worship, we have something to actually look at. So that's quite interesting. So in creating the Tista Jaw, Mother Dark may have simply, this is what they go on to talk about. In creating the Tista Jaw, Mother Dark may have simply separated what was once whole. So therefore, are the Tista Jaw the shadows of the Tist Andi torn free? I suppose that kind of makes sense. I think Trull then replies to that because this is a kind of a question from Onrak. And then Trull replies to that saying, we're all torn free. Not quite sure what that means, but that's the response he gets, that we're all torn free. Now what they then go on to say is that 2 hounds' souls are actually trapped in these statues. And they're casting no shadows. And then it says, nor the hounds themselves. If they are reflections, then there must be hounds of darkness, from which they were torn. So therefore, if these are hounds of shadow, then there must be hounds of darkness. Because to have shadow, you must have something to reflect the shadow. So therefore, the hounds of darkness, the hounds of shadow have been torn from the hounds of darkness. That makes sense to me. And then we go on with talking about the founder of the human first empire, which is Decembilakis. So Decembilakis. So is that like dismember? Decembilakis? I don't know, maybe. But he's long since vanished, and by the time of the unleashing of the beast ritual, he was believed to have veered. What I take that to mean is he was believed to have possibly changed his thought process, veered away from that train of thought, and taken some other thought process. So then he's just vanished, and no one can find him. What they say is the hounds of shadow are not worthy of worship. To command them, one must sit in the throne of shadows as master. So, is Shadow Throne currently the master of the throne of shadows? Because I'm getting myself a little bit confused between Shadow Throne and Anamanda Rake. I know Anamanda Rake holds Dragnapur. Is he just of Moonspawn? He's got nothing to do with shadows. But then he does get his magic from Curled Gawain. I think I'm getting myself confused. I think I'm getting discombobulated with it all. Yeah, so to command them, one must sit in the throne of shadows as master. So to command the hounds of shadow, someone must sit on the throne of shadows as master. That makes sense. Draw together the desperate fragments, making Curled Amorlan whole once more. So Curled Amorlan is fragmented, same as Curled Gawain is fragmenting. Okay, so obviously all the Warrens, as we know, are being affected by, is it just the poison of the crippled god, or is something else affecting the Warrens? Another power is behind this, and this is what your kin seek, the Teist Ajor. So the Teist Ajor are seeking the fragments of the Curled Amorlan. So they're seeking to put it back together. But there's another power behind it all. There's another power that is potentially breaking apart these Curled Amorlan and Curled Gawain. Who is that power? Not entirely sure. Not entirely sure who that is. It could be the crippled god, but maybe it's somebody else. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe I should know this at this point, but I don't think I do. Unless I'm, being a bit dim, I don't think I actually do. So this other power that they're talking about, who's sort of having an effect on things, Carul also seems to think that he's making the Teist Ajor an abomination. They grow corrupt, but that it's willful denial. They know what they're doing. And once the short-term objective is achieved, Krull kind of worries what's going to happen to his people. And then Omrak makes a kind of suggestion of they'll be discarded because they're no longer of any use. But they could also be annihilated because they know too much and now they need to go. So I think Krull feels, even though he's kind of been abandoned by his people, he still feels a duty that, he doesn't want anything to happen to the Teist Ajor. So this information is prevalent to him that he needs to find and help his people. Now, what I've put here as a question is this where the hounds parents set free are trapped? So we've got two hounds whose souls are trapped. Is this the hounds that Paran set free? Is the hounds of shadow from Dragnapur? Is this where they're trapped? Is it within these statue type things? Or potentially is this Cotillions dogs, rude and blind? Or is it something entirely different? So I'm not sure about those. Those are the questions that came up to me while I was making my notes and reading. Then Onrak takes his obsidian sword and hits the dog. Actually smacks the paw of the dog. The stone shatters and breaks, and the hound comes out and then attacks Onrak, ragging him about all over the place, breaking all his bones. We know he's like Tilanimas and he's dead, but still, he can be hurt. So he's got an arm missing, he's got broken bones, he's a mess. And they don't think that this is a hound of shadow, they think this is the hound of darkness that was hidden within the statues. Now they've let it free. What chaos is it going to create? If it did say 2, I missed it, because it does say there's 2 souls. I'm not sure if it released the 2 or 1. It didn't say. It sounded like 1 as I was reading. So we've got a hound of darkness now, potentially running around. Whether it gets out of this particular place or not, I don't know, but it is now free. Then Trull and Onrak find the gate that they've been looking for, and it's cast with a ward. But approaching the gate, Trull found a box of munitions, bombs. So they're wondering how can they get through this ward. Onrak has the bright idea of telling Trull to use the munitions To which Trull has no issues with. He goes, okay, this should be fun type thing. Throws one of the munitions at the gate, and it does break down the ward. But as soon as they do that, they both have the sense that something's coming. So Onrak tells Trull to run, which he does. Onrak stands with his fighting stance, ready to fight, and then through this gate come 4 horsemen. Now the 4 horsemen are Ennius, Orinus, Seneschal, and Malachar. These are the 4 horsemen that come through, and these are Teist Leosin. So we've got another Teist. So we've got Teist Andi, Teist Ajur, the other Teist that Mother Dark had, and these are different. I've not heard this one before, Teist Leosin. Again, unless I've missed it somewhere, I haven't heard of Teist Leosin. Now, as they come through, they dislike the Teist Andi, and they're not sure which kind of Teist Onrak is, so they attack him. They just charge at him. He fights back. He doesn't necessarily do that well, but then again, neither do they, and one of them does get hurt. So then they have a conversation. They start having a conversation. Onrak isn't prepared to answer the questions, but then Trull turns up again, shouts from behind them all to tell Onrak that he's sorry, but there's some backup. And he says sorry because 4 Talani Mas show up. One of them being Monarch Ochem, or Ochem, however you want to say it. These are renegade hunters, which Onrak was, but obviously when he got cast out, that no longer made him part of the clan. So these guys are renegade hunters, and Monarch Ochem is the one who converses with Onrak and says, basically we're going to take you because that's what we do. You're a renegade, we're going to deal with you. One of the other soldiers has a flint sword called Ibra Golan. So there's 4 of those. The Teist Leosin then turn around to the Talani Mas and say, you can have your prisoner. We don't want to keep him, you can have him. But they turn around to Trull and say, but we would like to offer you to be our servant. It's a great honour. To which Trull says, no, I'd rather stay with the Talani Mas. I've got no wants, needs or desires to become a servant, thank you very much. So he stays with the Talani Mas. But what we then find out is that Monarch Ochem tells the Teist Leosin that Osric, because they worship the son of the Father's light, which is Osric, he tells them that Osric is lost. They've been looking for their god, or wondering at least where he is. And Monarch Chem tells them that he's lost. But what they can do together, if they work together, is they can weave a ritual to fashion a gate. But they need the Talan, Leosin Warren, and the blood of the Teist Ajur to do this. Sounds interesting. I'm just wondering exactly where that's going to lead them to. So that's how chapter 9 ends. Very much focused on Onrak and Trull, a good majority of it. Small section about Apsalar and Cutter. So Apsalar is missing. Cutter has climbed up this huge amount of steps to get out of where he is. And Callum is now with some of the Malazans who first chained Casa in Synod. So yeah, that's where we're up to. That's chapter 9. Quite interesting chapters, but that's what we've read for today, and that's me done. If you have liked this video, please remember to like it. Thank you very much. If you like this content, you've watched a few times but you're not subscribed, do me a favour, press that subscribe button. It just helps with the algorithms on YouTube, and it just makes me feel a whole lot better about myself. And if you know anybody who likes Malazan and they like to watch content made and talked about Malazan, share this video with them, let them see if they like it. And yeah, that's it. That's me done for today. So enjoy the rest of your day. It's now almost 3:30 here in the UK, and I'm going to sign off. So as I say, I will join you again tomorrow for chapter 10. Until then, enjoy yourselves. See you all soon.